Have you ever imagined going to Belgium for their waffles? I did, but like many of us, our flights were canceled due to the international pandemic. But on another note, we're home, we're safe, and I hope you are too. Today, we're going to be making waffles, international and domestic. Personally, waffles are the best breakfast treat, hands down. If you're new to my channel, take the time to like, subscribe, and follow me on Instagram, and hit that notification button. Okay, let's get started. To start this recipe, I'm breaking out my InstaRead thermometer. In my measuring cup, I have 1/4 cup of milk, and I want to read the temperature. It should be at least 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and no hotter than 115. Okay, we're at 100. I have 1/4 ounce of dry active yeast. Pour that into your milk, and add 3 teaspoons of table sugar. Mix and let sit for 15 minutes. I have 2 large eggs at room temperature. Add and incorporate to your yeast mixture. In my stand mixer, I have 1½ cups of AP flour, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and turn on to low speed. Now going back to my yeast mixture, we're going to incorporate 1 stick or 1/2 cup of melted unsalted butter. Incorporate the butter slowly, and add 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Pause and make sure that your dry mixture is all combined evenly. And at this moment, you're going to incorporate the wet mixture to the dry. And continue mixing on low speed. Turn off your stand mixer. Locate your good vanilla. In this case, I'm using vanilla paste. So after you add your 1½ teaspoons of vanilla, go ahead and give it a 1 quick mix. Scrape out your paddle attachment. And you need to let the dough rest for about 45 minutes. Voila! So that's how it looks. So at this point, the dough should be soft and pliable, and the gluten should be relaxed. So the part that makes the Liège waffle a Liège waffle is the pearl sugar. You can't find this in most stores unless you go to a specialty store or you need to go online. They're chunky crystals that give you a dynamic texture on the finished product. You cannot substitute table sugar or brown sugar for this. You need particularly this pearl sugar. So I'm going to need about 3/4 cup of that sugar, and incorporate the sugar slowly so you don't activate too much gluten. Now is a good time to break out your waffle iron, you know, the one that's like covered in dust in the back, and turn it on to like maybe not the highest setting, but like the second highest setting. Me, I only have 5, so I went on to 4. And this will be a good time to break out your ice cream scooper. In particular, I'm using a 4-ounce ice cream scooper. It helps you get consistent measurements every time. So when your waffle iron is ready, go ahead and drop 4 4-ounce scoops of your dough directly onto the waffle iron. And depending on your waffle iron, it should take about 3 to 5 minutes. Voila, look, it's just that easy. And again, the exterior is supposed to be very crispy, and the sugar is going to caramelize, and then the inside is supposed to be like real fluffy. And with the rest of the dough, you could just like spread it out evenly, but I'm choosing to make one huge waffle. And with this waffle iron, you get real deep ridges. And because you use that pearl sugar, it doesn't fully dissolve. It is still crispy, airy, and it's so good, you don't even need syrup. I know that chicken and waffles is very trendy right now, and I really love it, but you never had this particular recipe before. Okay, let's get started on the chicken. In particular, the filling for my chicken patty. I'm using a Pink Lady Alice, which you need to core, slice into quarters, then dice. And in a medium-sized skillet, I have a tablespoon of butter and 1 tablespoon of olive oil. Dice 1/4 of a large onion and add that to the skillet. And add 1/2 teaspoon of salt and pepper. After 1 minute of sweating your onions, go ahead and incorporate your diced apple. And at this point, we're going to saute the onions and the apple. And what we're trying to achieve is a reduction of water, and we have a more concentration of flavor. Next, add 1/2 teaspoon of allspice and add 1 sprig of fresh thyme. Overall, this step should take about 3 to 5 minutes. In a large bowl, I have 1½ pounds of ground chicken. Add 1 teaspoon of red pepper flakes, 1 teaspoon of fennel seeds, 1 teaspoon of paprika, and 1 teaspoon each of garlic powder and onion powder, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, and your sauteed onions and apple. And because the chicken is a little bit on the leaner side, it's permissible for you to add a little bit of olive oil. And last, a 1/2 teaspoon of rosemary. Now at this point, it's your prerogative. You can use your hands. In this case, I'm using 2 forks to incorporate the meat mixture. It's important to be mindful when you incorporate the meat. You don't want to have any rough textures. Add a little bit of seasoning as needed, and put aside. Voila! My best friend for this episode, Le Waffle Iron. Very curvaceous. Now heat that waffle iron to the highest setting. In my case, it's number 5. Spray your waffle iron, and I have a 1 cup measure. I'm going to scoop my chicken sausage and spread it across my waffle iron. And after 4 minutes, your chicken sausage should be ready to go. In this method, there's no need for you to fully cook your patty. I'll tell you why later. Okay, going back to my bowl, I'm gonna get the rest of my chicken sausage and I'm gonna add it back to my waffle iron and press it for about 3 to 4 minutes. Voila! It is nice to have some color on it, but again, we're gonna be cooking this twice. Oh, I guess I gave out the secret. Yes, we're gonna be deep frying the sausage. Okay, asking for forgiveness in advance, we're using vegetable shortening. Yeah, go ahead and scoop it out, it does not look that pretty. Yes, you can use peanut oil, yes, you can use vegetable oil, but I was recommended to use Crisco because it doesn't leave those harsh odors around your house once you're done frying. Also, it comes in handy when you're making pie crust. In my Dutch oven, I have 48 ounces of vegetable shortening, but great to watch melt. And I think it's a good old time to break out your candy thermometer. So to make the transition easier, after I get my chicken out the waffle iron, I cooled it down in the refrigerator so it has more firmness. And as the oil heated, I coated my chicken in the flour and breadcrumb mixture and had that set aside. Okay, the oil is set at 375 degrees Fahrenheit, and I have my breaded chicken. At this point, get your tools ready and go ahead and drop that chicken. That chicken's gonna be really crispy. It wasn't that pretty before from the waffle iron, but this is the part where it looks really pretty. When making this recipe, I had to consider what would be a great topping for my waffles. And I thought, well, there's apples in my chicken sausage, so why not make a caramel applesauce? I'm gonna core 2 apples. Yeah, get that slow-mo. In particular, I'm using Pink Lady Alice. You can also use Fuji apples or Granny Smith. And they don't have to be the prettiest apples. It's just important for you to get yourself a firmer apple so they'll retain their shape later. And just cut them into segments and put aside. In my 10-inch skillet, which is heated on medium heat, I have 2 tablespoons of butter. Throw your sliced apples into the skillet and arrange accordingly, like so. Add 1 tablespoon of light brown sugar, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg. And you want to cook your apples for about a couple minutes. And at this point, I'm going to incorporate my lemon zest and half a lemon. Stir your apples and your spices so that the spices get incorporated a little more easily and everything just all dissolves. Okay, straight from my liquor shelf, I have rye whiskey. Okay, go ahead and crack it open. I'm going to add like half a jigger of it. At this point, if you're new to flambeing, I want you to pause this video and accept this warning. Fire can be dangerous, and if you're not sure, make sure you have a fire extinguisher ready and a proper fitting lid for your skillet. Okay, continue. And whew, at the end, the alcohol will all dissipate, so there'll be no worry to serve this to your children. It won't harm them. But if you're still concerned, you don't have to add the rye whiskey. Just continue to cook for a couple minutes and your apple should be ready to go, and the way you know is that the sauce is going to be very thick. There we go. Now, since we're on the same subject about waffles, you can't make waffles without making a Belgian waffle. So let's get that started. So in a large mixing bowl, I'm separating 2 room temperature eggs. Boop, boop. And we need to whisk our egg whites until they turn to a stiff peak. Now here's a tip that I should have known better about. It's important for us to use cold mixing bowls. It will help the peaks form easily. So since my bowl was at room temperature, it just took much more effort, and definitely more effort than I needed to. And if you don't have a glass bowl, a metal bowl works just as fine. Just make sure it's all clean. And after a couple minutes of whisking, you'll notice the egg whites changing color. So when it starts getting a little frothy, it'd be a good time for you to add your 1 tablespoon of sugar and continue whisking. And whisking and whisking and whisking. And for those who are new to this, it does take a while. And what I should have done is get a bigger whisk. Some people even have what they call a balloon whisk, which I don't have. Alright, let's get back to it. And then I said to myself, well, I have a hand mixer, just go get that. Stop breaking your arm. I'm like, what was I thinking? See, make stuff work for you, don't work for it. So yeah, after like 3 or 4 minutes of whisking, now you get yourself a stiff peak. Now in my next bowl, which is just only for dry ingredients, I have 1 cup of AP flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and in my mixing cup I have 1 cup of milk, and I will incorporate my egg yolk. Stirring constantly, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of butter, and my good vanilla. And in this case I'm using vanilla paste, and half a teaspoon of salt. So when the wet mixture is all incorporated, then we're going to incorporate it to the dry mixture, and stir that lightly, and I mean lightly. We don't want to activate too much gluten. And now we're going back to the other bowl with our egg whites. And I like to practice this method where I divide the application of egg whites into thirds. The first third I'm going to add and then just mix it as regular. For the second and third application, we're going to fold our meringues into the waffle batter. By folding in your meringues, you don't deplete the air out of the batter. Basically, this method keeps the batter light and airy. Again, we want to limit additional gluten formation. And continue folding, and it is okay to have a little bit of egg white still present. So back to our waffle iron friend, get this ready. On my settings, I'm going to the second highest setting available. So just add enough batter to coat your waffle maker. And I have one of those waffle irons that have really high ridges that divides my waffles really easily, which you'll notice later. And after 4 minutes, I got this beauty. So with the rest of your batter, just go ahead and incorporate it back into your waffle maker. Okay, I have my waffles ready. So let's figure out how to arrange these components. Slice all your waffles into quarters. Get your crispy and juicy fried chicken and place it on top of your waffle. Arrange your waffles on top, preferably the ones that look the best. And get a good cross section. I'm telling you, you had chicken and waffles, but you never had this chicken and waffles before, I guarantee it. And that waffle is so crispy. Since I've done this like a million times, I'm gonna break it down for you, it's really easy. So get a presentable plate, in this case, a crossbreed of a bowl and a plate. Place one of your sandwiches towards the back of your plate and anchor it with 2 skewers, like so. I'm arranging my sandwich for more dynamic angles. Remember our flambéed apples? Place them accordingly so you can maximize decent height. Plating is so important, simply due to us being visual eaters. Spoon your sauce and pour it down your waffle sandwich, like so. You can create an abstract splattering of your sauce so that your plating looks more intentional. And as a finishing touch, I have my fine mesh sieve and a 1/4 cup of powdered sugar. Lightly tap the top of your sieve to get a light snowy effect onto your tower and coat your tower of chicken and crispy waffles. And after making all this, I got so hungry I was ready to eat. Honestly, when it's all said and done, it looks like a mess at the very end. I made this maybe a couple times, but it's always a treat. It's not the healthiest way to eat, but it's definitely fun, and in times like this, you need to have a little more fun. And overall, it's a good excuse to be trying something new. You're home, what else we have to do? That's it, folks. Time for great. Take 2. That's it, folks. Thank you so much for watching. I know times are tough, and it's tough for me too. I hope this video serves as a means of happiness for your home. Believe me, making these episodes give me so much purpose and a bit of structure I'm not really used to, but I still enjoy it. More videos are coming. Just bear with me. Until then, goodbye.